Hello and welcome everyone to the element of costing, and today's session we're going to learn inventory classification and the valuation. That's a very wonderful chapter from this element of costing, and from this chapter we're going to learn how to value the inventory. So there are a few methods we're going to learn from this chapter. Especially we have a Fifo, we have a Lifo, and we have a AVCO. So these three methods we're going to learn from this chapter. So let's have a look what we have from this chapter. So first thing we're going to see the valuation method. So if we look at the chapter overview, it says inventory valuation, three methods. So we're going to learn all of these three methods from this chapter. We're going to learn Fifo, that is first in first out. We're going to learn Lifo, that is last in first out, and also the final one we're going to learn weighted average, sometimes we call AVCO. All of these three methods we're going to learn from this chapter, and we want to see how can we value the inventory based on three different valuation methods. So let's talk about the Fifo. The Fifo said inventory is valued at the latest price. So that means if I buy inventory at the beginning and later on, so I always issue the inventory at the beginning price first. For example, let's say I have on 1st of June I have purchased some inventory. I have bought some inventory, let's say 10 unit, and after that on 2nd of January we have purchased more, another 10. Now we have a 20 unit, and this 10 unit I purchased at rate of 1, and this 10 unit I purchased 2 per unit or 2 per kilo, whatever it is. And 3rd of Jan, let's say I like to issue inventory. Now before the issue or before the sold of an inventory, I have to see how many unit I need to sold, how many unit I need to issue, and I'm going to use the previous one first, that is from 1st of January, then I'll come here to the 2nd of January. Let's say I have to issue 15 unit. So first 10 I'm going to take from here. So I'm going to say 10 unit, I'm going to charge £1 per unit, and another 5 I'm going to take from here. So another 5 I'm going to take from here, that will be 2 per unit. Total cost will be 10, and this one will be 10. 5 times 2, it will be 10. So the value of the 15 unit will be 20. So this is a simple calculation for the Fifo. So what happening here, we take the first one first. So first in first out. So 1st of January the product in first, that's why I have to take it out first. So who came first, he will be out first. So first in first out. So if I do the same thing for the Lifo, I do opposite way. So let's have a look what we do for the Lifo. Let's say I have the same example. I have 1st of January, I have 10 unit. Let's say 2nd of January, I have another 10 unit, and this one at 1 at the rate of 2. And 3rd of January, let's say I want to issue 20 unit. So in this case, I'm going to use this 10 first. So I'm going to say not 20, let's say 15. So I'm going to take this 10 first. So 10 times 2, and from here I'm going to take another 5. So 5 times it will give me 5. So total cost will be 25. So you can see because of the inventory valuation method, Fifo gave me 20, the total issue cost. On the other hand, Lifo gave me 25. So the issuing cost is different because of the different inventory method. Remember that this is the valuation of the closing inventory, and because of the closing inventory our cost of sales is reduced, and if the closing inventory have a higher value, then the profit will be higher for the company. Now let's talk about the weighted average or average. It is quite simple. Let's see if we take the same example. 1st of January we have 10 unit at £1. 2nd of January we have 10 unit at £2, and 3rd of January I like to sell, or I like to issue 15 unit. Now what I'll do, I'll took the price. So 10 unit at 1 is £10, 10 unit at 2 is 20 pound. So total value is 30. For how many unit? 20. So for 20 unit, the value is 30. So I'll divide with 20 to get how much is the per unit. So that gave me 1.5, for example. Now those 50 unit, this 15 unit I'm going to issue, I'm going to multiply 1.5. So that will exactly give me the cost for 15 units. So if I have a 15 unit times 1.5, that gives me 22.5. So that means I'm not taking the last price, I'm not taking the first price, but I'm averaging the price. So total cost and total unit, that gives me average cost per unit, and I divide to get the average cost per unit, and after that I multiply with the issue unit to get the total cost value. How we can calculate all of these our valuation for the Fifo, Lifo and AVCO. So let's try to understand a little bit more. Let's say we have a stock. Let's say that's our warehouse. So all the product come here first, and after we issue to the different department. Now let's say if I can use the different method. Let's say I have a stock here, and I have a 3 stock. Stock 1, this is the one I received on my warehouse 1st of Jan 1. This stock I received Jan 2, and this stock I received January 3. Now this is the one first I received. Let's say the price was £1. After that this one is price £2, and after that this one the price is £3. So what will happen if I use the Fifo, first in first out? I'm gonna finish all of this first. I'm gonna use all the unit that I receive first of, then I'll move to the second. But if I use the Lifo, I'm gonna use this one, the top one first, the most recent one I received. And if I use the AVCO, then what I do, I make the average and how many unit, and I multiply with the average price. So I don't use any first or last. So average total cost divide average total unit, and that gives me the average cost per unit. And after that, any unit I issue, before the issue I make the average, and I issue the unit with the average cost. So we hope now we have a little bit understanding about the first in first out, or last in first out, or the average method. Remember, Lifo is kind of internationally banned, so it is unlikely you're going to see any question in the exam. So it's a very hardly tested in the exam, because a lot of country they ban Lifo, especially UK. No one use Lifo. So if you work in a company, you will see either they use the Fifo or they use the AVCO, but not the Lifo. But for the exam purpose, still you need to learn. But for the workplace, maybe you're not going to see Lifo in the workplace. So let's move on. Let's try to do some example and try to understand more about the inventory valuation, Fifo, Lifo and AVCO. Let's have a look. We have one example here, closing inventory. Let's read this question. It says activity 1, closing inventory values. The inventory record card for fountain pen needs to be completed for the following instruction, for the following transactions. 1st March, so date is very important. We have opening inventory. So opening inventory, whatever was the closing for the last period is the opening for this period. So this one come from the last period. 100 units brought at 2. So at 1st of March you have a stock 100 unit brought at 2. Then we have 2nd of March. So the next one we have here, 2nd of March. On 2nd of March you have purchased 300 units at £2.10 each unit. On 5th of March we have sold 50 units for £5 per unit. Here is the thing you have to remember. So every time before we sold or before we issue, we have to make sure what price I'm going to issue. Now it will depend what type of valuation method I'm using. On 17th of March I can see we have purchased again 100 unit at 2.30 each, and 20th of March we can see we sold 150 unit for £5 per unit. Now remember, sold and the issue is not the same thing. So when we issue inside of the department. For example, we have one company X Limited, and inside of two department. So we have a warehouse department, we have a production department. So when the product come, we keep in the warehouse department, and from the warehouse department we issue the product to the production department. Let's say I'm issuing the raw material. Now when I issue the raw material, I don't make a profit, I charge with the cost price. But when I sold actually outside to the market, then I always make a profit. So you have to understand that issue and the sold is a different thing. So let's have a look what is the requirement here. The requirement we have here, it says calculate the value of closing inventory at the end of the March using Fifo, Lifo and AVCO method by completing the table below for AVCO method. The average cost per unit should be calculated 3 decimal places. So let's try to do some workings here, because we understand it's not that difficult. So let's write it down here, Fifo. Let's write it down here, Lifo, and let's write it down here, AVCO. Let's see what workings we can do here. Now if I do here with the Fifo, now at the beginning we can see we have 100 unit, and every unit the cost is £2. It's a very simple to understand, so we understand this one. So we said okay, so at the beginning we have 200 unit, 100 unit as the opening inventory. So 1st of March, this one, we said we have 100 unit and each unit is £2. So total value we have 200. That's my value for the opening inventory. On 2nd of March we can see we have brought another 300. So I said okay, we have buy another 300, and each unit we have purchased £2.10, so 2.10, and that will give me the cost. So 300 times 2.10 is 630. So this is my purchase. There is no issue until now. The problem is happen when you issue. So we can see here in 5th of March, after 2nd of March, the next date is 5th of March, I'm issuing 50 unit. So now the question is, if I issue 50 unit, now I have a 400 unit total, isn't it? 400 unit I have, and the value I have total 830. Now the question is, if I issue the 400 unit, which value I'm going to charge? Like for this 50 unit I'm going to issue. Now as we are using the Fifo, I'm going to use all the inventory I have purchased at the beginning. So I'm going to use all the unit for 1st of March, then I move to 2nd of March, because first in first out, the first in is March, then 2nd of March, then 3rd of March, then 4th of March. So I will finish all the inventory that I have from the beginning. So from the starting I can see I have a 1st of March. So from this 100 unit I have, I'm going to use all this 100 first, then I move to the next box. So I'll say okay, so 50 unit I need to issue, and this 50 unit I'm going to put as a minus because I'm issuing, and this 50 unit I'm going to use from this 100 first because it's first in first out. So I'm going to charge £2 per unit. So I'm going to say £2 per unit. So 50 times 2 gives me 100. So I'm going to say okay, the value is 100, so value is gone. So 50 unit is gone, so I have left now 350 unit on my warehouse, and the total value is 730. Then I can see on 17th of March I purchase again 100 unit. So I said okay, 17th of March I purchase another 100 unit, and each unit cost 30. So times £2, and that gives me 230 total. That's all right. So now I have total unit 450. So I can say total 450 unit I have, and the total value is 730 plus 230. So that gives me 960. And finally I can see on 20th of March I'm going to issue another 150 unit. Now the question is from where I'm going to issue the 150 unit. So let's write it down here because we don't have a space. So 150 unit I need. Now this 150 unit, remember from this 100 we use only 50, isn't it? So still we have 50 left there. So I'm going to say I'm going to take 50 from there, at a rate of 2, and another 100 I'm going to take from this 300, the next one. So I'm going to say 100 I'm going to take at the price of 210. So this one will give me 210, and my total FIFO issue value will be 310. Alright, that's perfect. So what will happen now? So we can see here 310. So this is the value for that. So I'm going to minus 310 from here. So 310, and I'm going to minus 150 unit because 150 I'm issuing, and the remaining value will be 960 minus 310, and that will give me 650. And my remaining unit will be 400 minus 150 unit, and that will be 300 unit. So my closing inventory will be 300 unit, and the value will be 650 pound if I use the FIFO method for the inventory valuation. So that's how we can do the valuation for the FIFO. The next one we have, that is for the Lifo. So this is the same story, but this time I'm going to use the most latest one. So let's have a look how can we do the Lifo. So we can see the 1st of March again I have 100 unit and 2, that gives me 200. Then I have 300 unit times 2.10, and that gives me 300 times 210, this gives me 630 here. So 630. So total 400 unit I have, and the value is 830, is same anyway. Now the problem here is when I issue, now this 50 I was using the latest price from here, that was FIFO, but this time I was in the Lifo, that is last in first out. So between these 200 and 300, which one came last? The 300, that price, and I'm gonna use the unit from there. So 50 unit I'm going to take from this 300, not the 100, because this is a Lifo. So this time I'm going to say 50 times £2.10, £2.10, and me the value of this 50 pound, so 50 unit. So let's say 50 times £2.10, and that gives me 105. So I'd say 105. I have the value for this 50 unit. So I have 350 left, and the value left here 830 minus 105, that should be 725. And after that we can see we purchase another 100 unit. So I'm going to add 100, and this time the 100 units is 2.30. that will give me same like before, 230. So 230 plus 725, that gives me 955, and the total unit I have 450. And finally the last 150 I need to sell. Now this is the main thing, 150, what will be the value for that? So let's say do the workings here, 150. So I have already used 50 unit from there, but after that I purchased another 100, isn't it? So remember I'm gonna take the latest one. So I'm going to say this is my last in after, so the last in is 100 unit, so I'm gonna use the whole 100. So last in 100, that is 2.30, that is 230, and another 50 I need, that I'm gonna take from that 300. So I'm going to say 50 times 2.10, and that will give me 50 times 2.10, 105. 105. So 230 plus 105, that will be 230 plus 105, and that will be our 335. So the value of the 150 unit will be 335. So I'm going to say the value of the 150 unit will be 335. So if I minus that from this 955 minus 955, that gives me 620. So 620 for the value of 300 unit. So we can see if I use the Fifo, the value is 650, and if I use the Lifo, the closing inventory value is 620. The main reason here, the main reason for that is if we use the most latest price, we paid more. You can see here we paid £2.30 per unit, we paid £2.10 per unit, and before we paid only £2. So if I use the Fifo, I use the like the previous price, so that means like I issue the inventory with the low price, and that's why my closing inventory gave me higher price, so higher value charge at the end. But if I use the Lifo, I use the most latest one, that means the old price is cheap one, give me the less value for the closing inventory. Alright, let's understand the next one for the AVCO. Now AVCO is quite easy, to be honest. All you need to do, you need to make the average. So let's say we have the opening, we have 100 unit. So we can see here for the 100 unit, same thing, 100 unit times 2, that gives me 200. Then we have purchase another 300. So 300 times 2.10, and that gives me 630. And the total is 830. Unit is 400. Up to here is same for everyone anyway. And after that, what we do before we issue, we make the average. How we make the average? So we said 830 divide 400. So 830 divide 400. So that gives me £2.75. So if I do 830 divide 400, and that gives me 2.075. So that is my average per unit. Now if I issue the 50 unit from here, so this 50 unit I'm going to issue on that price, the average price 2.075. So times 50 unit, and this will gives me 103.75. 103.75. So now we have a 350 unit, and the value for that will be 726.25. 726.25. That's very simple. Just we need to make the average before we make the issue. And then 17th of March we have 100 unit again. So 100 unit we purchase, and 230, so that will be times 2.30. So that gives me 2, and my new value will be 230. It will be 956.25. 956. And that's it. Now before we make the issue and do the average again, so do the average again. So 956.25 divide 620, and that will give me 620. That gives me 1.54. So that will be the new average for that. So let's have a look this total average now. So we have how many unit left? So we have sorry, you took this one, the wrong one. It should be that one, isn't it? 300 plus 100, so it's 450 unit. So 450, so we have a 956.25. 956.25 divide 450, that gives me 2.125. 2.125, that's my average price. And before I make the issue for the 150 unit, I'm going to multiply with that. So times 2.150, that gives me 318.75. 318.75. So that will give me the difference. So the difference will be the unit 300, and here the difference will be 637.50. That's it. So you can see here now, because of the different inventory valuation, it just changed. So all you need to understand, Fifo used the price at the beginning, so you're going to finish all this 100 first, then 300, then you move to 100. So at the beginning inventory we have from the very starting, we're going to finish this one, then you're going to move to the next one. The Lifo is the opposite, so we start from the last and go to the top. And for the AVCO, we make the average before we make the issue. Remember that we don't make the average only once. Every time before we make the issue, we make the average. So we make the average and we issue. Then again if we buy, again if we buy, again if we buy, then before we make the issue, again we average and we issue on that price. So actually before we issue, we make the average, then we issue that price. Now let's move on to the box, the table, and let's see how quickly we can complete that. So you already know the workings, so let's complete it there. Alright, so if we move to that one, the table, whatever workings you have done, we're just going to write it down here, this thing. So you can see here the quantity was 100 and cost per unit was 2. The total cost is 200. And the quantity for the balance, we have a three things: receipt, issue, and the balance. So we record on the receipt. When you sold or issue, we record on the issue. And after that we add or minus and find the balance, record on the balance column. So we can see here, after that we have a issue. We don't have an issue on 1st of March, so my balance is still 100. So quantity will be 100, and the quarter cost is still 200 because we don't have anything else. On 2nd of March we buy another 300 unit. That's £2.10, and the total, so we have 300 now, and before we had 100. So 100 plus 300, that gives me now 400. My new quantity is now 400. So once you have the 400 unit, my new balance will be, we already have 200 here and 630 we have here now. So 630 plus 200 will be 830. Whatever workings you have done before, we just like record on the table now. On 5th of March we have an issue, so we're going to record on the issue column. So how many unit? 50 unit we have issue, and 50 unit we issue at the price of 2 because we want to use all this from this 100 first. They want to come back the 300, so we want to use everything we have for this from this 100. So until the 100 finish, we're going to keep using from there. Then once everything is finished from the 100 unit, then we move to the 300, then we will charge the price £2.10. So we have 2, so that gives me total cost 100, and my new balance will be now 350. So because 50 is gone from 100, so this 50 will be minus from 100, so my new balance will be 350, and my balance for the cost will be 100 will be minus from here, isn't it? This 100 will be minus from there, and that will give me 730. And the next one, 17th of March, we buy another 100 unit. The cost is £2.30 per unit, and the total cost is 230. And after that we need to see how much is the new balance. So you already have 350 plus 100, so it will be 450 now. 450, and the new cost will be 730 you already have, plus 230 will be added, so that gives me 960. So finally you have 20th of March. On the 20th of March we have issue 150 unit, we have issue. So first 50 I'm going to use from the previous, because from this 100 I use only 50 here, another 50 left, so another 50 I'm going to use at the rate of 2, so that gives me 100, and another 100 I'm going to take from this 300, that's 2.10, and that will give me 210, and total it will be 310, isn't it? And my unit will be here, 100 plus 150, that will be 150. And if I sold 150 from the 400, so 300 unit will be left. And if I minus 300, the value will be left 650. Alright, we have seen the workings already. We have done the workings before, and this is the way you can record on this table. The same way we can do for the Lifo, and the same way you can do for the AVCO. All you have this book, and the book have an answer at the end, so you can complete your box, but we already know because you have done the workings at the beginning. All you need to know, you need to copy the information and record on this table. But the next point we have here, how is it important for the gross profit, how it is changed? Let's have a look this one. So we can see the first question we have here. On the question they said we have sold 50 unit here, and we have sold 150 unit here, so total 50 plus 150 is 200 unit we have sold, and each unit we have sold £5, so 200 plus 200 times 5 is gives me 1000, so 200 unit times 5 per unit, it gives me 1000, so my revenue will be 1000, and we know my closing value already, so obviously that will give me the difference. So the issuing cost you already know, so we have the issuing cost for the Fifo, and we have the issuing cost for the Lifo, and we have the issue cost for the AVCO. So let's have a look what will be the value for that. So let's find it out. What is the issue cost for the Fifo? So for the Fifo I can see I have issued total how many times. So we have issued first 50, so this one I have issued, that is 100, and another 150 unit I have issued, that is 230, so 330, so we have 330, so 330 plus 100, and that gives me total 410, so that's my issue price, 410 for the Fifo. So with the Fifo I have a issue price 410. Then for the Lifo I have the same story, so you can see here, so we have 105 and we have 335, so 105 plus 335, that gives me 440. So for the Lifo the issue value we have 440, and for the AVCO we can see we have 10375 and we have 318, so this one if I add it, this gives me 422.50, that's my AVCO. Okay, now I have the issue price, and now I know my sales, so I can complete the profit table. So I can see my sales revenue, I have 1000. Any method I use, my sales revenue is same, because 200 unit I have sold, and each unit is £5, and that gives me 1000. So for the Fifo is 1000, for the Lifo is 1000, for the AVCO is 1000. Then the cost of issue, the cost of sales, under that we have a cost of issue. For the Fifo we have a cost of issue 410, that we have just calculated now. Then for the Lifo we have a cost 440, and for the AVCO we have a cost 422.50. Now all you need to do, you need to minus, find the difference, 1000 minus 410, 1000 minus 440, and 1000 minus 422.50. So here under the Fifo method I have a gross profit 590, under the Lifo method I have a gross profit 560, under the AVCO method I have a gross profit 577.50. That's it. That's quite simple. It's not very difficult. So that's how we can understand our Fifo, Lifo, and AVCO. All you need to understand, Fifo means from the beginning, so first in first out. So if we have a first, second, third, 4th, let's say every time you buy. But before the issue, so I'm going to use this unit first for the FIFO, then you come here, then you come here, then you come here. But if we use the Lifo, then you start from the beginning, from the bottom. So I'm going to use the latest one, then I'm going to use all of this quantity first and I issue that. Then after that, if it's finished, then I move to the top one, then next one, then next one. So that's how we can use the Lifo. And for the AVCO, we added all the unit, let's say 10 unit, 10 unit, and the cost, let's say 20 and 20. So we added the unit, 20 unit and 40. After that, we bring the 20 unit on the bottom of the cost 40, and that gives me £2 per unit. And before issue, we use this 20, the average cost, and that's why it is called AVCO. I hope all of you, if you do a little bit revision, you will be absolutely fine. It's not very that difficult thing, but all you need little bit revision anyway. All right, let's move on and let's do some more practice for this inventory valuation. Let's have a look what we have on the next page. All right, we have activity 2. Let's have a look this one. The activity 2 is sort of theoretical question. Let's have a look what we can do from here. So we have says identify inventory valuation method. Requirement: identify the correct inventory valuation method from the characteristics given by putting a tick in the relevant column in the table below. So we have a FIFO, we have a Lifo, and we have AVCO. So we need to tell which method we use under this definition. So what definition is the right one? The first one we have cost issues of inventory of the most recent purchase. Most recent. So that means if I have a first, second, third, so I use the recent one from the bottom. That's my Lifo, isn't it? If I use the most recent, that's my Lifo. If it is the FIFO, then I use this one from the oldest one. So the most recent one is always Lifo. Then we have cost issue of inventory at the oldest purchase. Now we know this one is the FIFO, the oldest one. So you always use the beginning, the price from the beginning. So whatever we have buy at the beginning, we use that quantity first, then we move to the next one. That's the FIFO. Then value closing inventory at the most recent price. So this one is a tricky question, remember that. So this two, they said issues, but this one said values closing inventory at the most recent price, remember that. So value closing inventory. Now valuing the closing inventory most recent price with the FIFO, and I'll show you how. For example, let's say on 1st of January my price was 1, 2nd of January my price was 2, then 3rd of January my price was 3, 4th of January my price was 4. Now let's say I issued all of this one is finished, I issued all of this one is done, I issued all of this, only this unit is left, 4 unit at £4 per unit. Now if I issue the closing inventory, because this is all gone, I already issued, so only this left on my closing inventory, on my stock, this is only left. So which one I valued? The most recent one, isn't it? So the most recent price is 4. Other price is cheap, you can see here 321. So the most recent price on 4th of January, that is £4. That's why they said value closing inventory at the most recent purchase price. So when they said value closing inventory at the most recent price, that will be FIFO. And when they said cost issue of the inventory at the oldest price, that is FIFO also. The reason is when I issue, I use from the top. When I give to my different department, I use this one 1st of January, then move to 2nd. But the closing inventory when I valued, because if I issue from the oldest, then the recent one will be the value for the closing inventory in my stock. So for example, if I have a box and if I keeping the inventory here, for example, and if I use the FIFO, so I finish this one first, then finish this one first, then finish this one first. So the most recent one I buy here, isn't it? So obviously, like if I do it opposite, for example, so this one is my FIFO, let's say, and that is basically 1st of January, 2nd of January, 3rd, 4th of January. So I'm going to use all this first, then I'm going to use all this first, then I'm going to use all this first. So the most recent price, that is I buy recently, that will be valued under the Fifo. That's why they said value closed inventory at the most recent purchase price. So don't mix it up with this thing. One is issue, one is closing inventory value. Then we have closing inventory is valued at the average. Average means AVCO. As soon as you see the word average, this is AVCO. Alright, let's move to the next one. Let's have a look. What is the next one we have? The next one we have here, they said identifying inventory valuation method 2. You are told the opening inventory of a single raw material in the store is 1000 unit. So we have an opening inventory that is 1000 unit and £5 per unit. So let's make the value of that. 1000 unit, £5 per unit, that will be 5000, isn't it? During the month 2000 unit are received, so we have more 2000. So 2000 times 6, so it's 12,000. So total we have 3000 unit. Okay, then after that they said the following week 1800 units are issued. 1800 is the issue, so we have to make the value for Fifo, Lifo and AVCO. The first one, they said the closing inventory is valued 7200. The value of the closing inventory is 7200. So let's try to understand. So if I issue this 1800 from here, if I use the Fifo, what will happen? So if I use the Fifo, I'm going to use this 1000 first, then I'm going to take another 800 from here. So let's have a look. They said if I take this 1000, so this will be gone, and another 800 will be gone from here. So only if I take the 800 from 2000, so it will be remaining 1200, and 1200 times 6. So 1200 times 6, and that gives me 7200, and that's correct. So 7200 will be value closing inventory if I issue with the method of Fifo. So I said yes, because if I use the Fifo, I'm gonna use this one first. The whole 1000 will be gone first, then I need another 800, isn't it? Because I'm issuing 1800, so another 800 I'm going to use from this 2000. So if I take 800 from the 2000, 1200 left, and 1200 is the value of 6, so it's 7200. My closing inventory. Closing inventory means what is left after issuing. Then the next one we have here, the cost, the issue of 1800 unit is cost 10,800. Okay, let's try the Lifo first. So if I use the Lifo, all the 1800 I'm going to use from 2000 unit, isn't it? So here from 2000 unit, I'm going to use all the 1800 unit. So I'll have 100 unit is 6. So here I have 1200, and we have full 1000 here, isn't it? So that is 5000. So I'm going to say the first one we have 5000. So from 2000, if I take 1800, then I have a 200 left. Okay, and the 200 times 6, so 200 times 6, that gives me 1200. Yeah, and after that 1000, that is 5000, so that gives me 6200. So that's, let's have a look once again. Yeah, so the closing inventory value will be 5000 plus 1200, that gives me 6200. But the question said not the closing inventory. This one, the first one was for the closing inventory, but the next one was for the issue cost of 1800. That's quite simple, isn't it? Because if they said how much will be the issue cost for 1800 unit, so if I use the Lifo, all the 1800 I'm going to take from the last one, the latest one, 2000, from the 2000. So 1800 I'm going to use the price 6. So 1800 times 6, that will give me 10,800. So I'm going to say that is my Lifo, because if I use the Lifo, the issue cost will be 10,800. How? We have a 2 unit. the 1000 is the beginning, and after we have 2000. So the most recent one is 2000. If I use the Lifo, the last in is 2000. So from the last, I'm going to use all this unit, so that will give me 10,800, because from the 2000 if I take 1800 and the price is 6. Then finally we have issue of 1800 unit is cost 10,200. Maybe most likely it will be average. So let's have a look this one. So I have a 3000 unit, so 3000 unit cost 17,000. So let's divide that. 17,000 divide 3000. So 17,000 divide 3000, and that gives me 5.66. So let's say 5.67 per unit, and times for 1800 unit. So times 1800 unit, and that gives me 10,199.99. that means 10,200, because if it is 99.99 we can make it 0. So there's a make it round, so make it round 10,200. So this is AVCO. So you can see here that's not very difficult. If you understand the concept, it's not going to be very difficult. So Fifo means from the very oldest one, and the Lifo means from the latest one, and AVCO means make the average, total cost by total unit, and make the average, and after that you use that. All right, move to the next one, activity 4. Let's have a look what we have here. The activity 4 we have here, let's read this question. They said identifying inventory valuation method 3. You are told the opening inventory of a single raw material in the store is 1000 unit, 5 per unit, and during the month 2000 at 6 unit are received, and the following week 1800 are issued. So the same question we have just done. Maybe the requirement will be different. Requirement: identify whether the statement in the table below are true or false by putting a tick in the relevant column. Okay, they said the AVCO closing inventory value 6,800. We have calculated that already, isn't it? Even the question didn't ask, we have done before. Let's do it once again. So for the AVCO we make it average. So let's say if we make the average, so we have a 3000 unit, 1000 plus 2000, 3000 unit, and the cost, we remember that because 1000 times 5, it was 5000, and 2000 times 6, it was 12,000. So it was total 17,000 the cost. So 17,000 is the cost and 3000 is the unit, and that gives me I think let's have a look. 3000, that gives me 5.67. Now if I have the closing inventory, how many closing inventory have? So from the 3000 unit, 1000 plus 2000. From the 3000 if I issue 1800, so from the 3000 if I issue 1800, how many unit left? So 3000 minus 1800, that gives me 1200 unit left, and 1200 times 5.67, and that gives me 6,800. So let's track this one, 600, and this one will be true. So AVCO value closing inventory is 6,800. Then move to the next one. The Fifo costs are issue 1800 unit at this. So Fifo cost 1800. So let's have a look. Fifo cost issue 1800. So the first one, we're going to take this whole 1000. Whole 1000 cost is 5000 anyway, and we need more 800 from this 2000. So 800 times 6. So 800 times 6, that gives me 4,800. 4,800. This is 4. So 4,800 plus 5,000, that gives me 9,800 for the issue of 1800 unit under the Fifo method. That's false. That's not true, isn't it? It will be 9,800, not like 12,800. Then finally we have a Lifo. The Lifo said the Lifo value closing inventory is 6,200. Let's check this one. So the Lifo, if I take the Lifo, I'm going to use all this from the 2000 unit, the latest one. So from the 2000 unit, if I take 1800 units, so 200 will be left, so that will be 6, and on the top 1000 I have left, so 1 times 5. So we have 1200 here and we have 5000 here, so that will be 6200. Yeah, that looks okay. Alright, that's not difficult. So we have this one for our Fifo, Lifo and AVCO, and more we practice, we learn more. That's the main thing. We have to do a lot of practice. There is no alternative for the practice. All we have to make sure we practice a lot. Let's have a look at the next example. So activity 5. Alright, so let's have a look at activity number 5. This is quite a nice question, and hopefully you will understand more about the valuation from this method, from this activity. So let's have a look what we have here. Cost of the issue and inventory valuation. A business has the following movement of a certain type of inventory into and out of its store for the month of March. There was no opening inventory, so there is no opening inventory. We have a receipt and we have issues. So we have receipt 700, 600, 200. This is the cost for that, and we issue only 800 unit on 20th of March, and after that we receipt again 300. That's fine. Let's have a look what is the requirement. Complete the table to entering the issue and closing inventory. So you have to find the cost of issue and the closing inventory. So we have to find both under the Fifo, Lifo and AVCO method. Let's start with the Fifo first. Fifo. So let's have a look. We have at the beginning, we can see we have a 700 unit, then 600 and 200, and we need to find it out. This 800, the issuing cost for the 800. So let's have a look. 800. Now to value the inventory for the 800 unit for the issue cost, first I'm going to use all the 700 first, then I'll one 600. So I'm going to take all the 700. So I'll say 700 I'm going to take, and the cost will be for the 700 3500 because I'm taking everything, and I need 100 more because I have already 700 from here, so I need 100 from the 600. So for that reason I have to know how much is the cost per unit. So we have a 3600, the total cost, so 3600, and the total unit is 600. So 3600 divided 600, and that gives me £6 per unit. So I'm going to say another 100 I need, the price will be 6, so that gives me 600. So I understand now 3500 that we have for the 600, and another 100 is 600 the cost, and that gives me 4100. So 4100, that is my issue cost, 4100. Let's write it down a little bit later. So 4100. Now if I minus this one from here, so we have a 700, this is gone, so this 700 I fully use, and from here I have used 100 from the 600, so I have 500 left from here. 500 I have left from the 600, that is £6 per unit, so that should be 3000. And I have this 200 completely left, so 200, the price is 1600 is already here, only 300 here, that is 2700. This is the unit I have on my warehouse as a stock. So let's do that. 3000 plus 1600 plus 2700, and that gives me 7300. So you understand the issue value is 4100 and the closing inventory value is 7300. So issuing value is how much is the value for this 800, and the closing inventory is after selling this 800 unit, how many unit we have left on the stock and how much is the value for that. The next one we have a Lifo. So Lifo, I'm gonna take the most recent one. So before I issue 800, the most recent is 200. So I'm gonna take all this 200 first. So I'm gonna say 200, that gives me cost 1600, and I'm gonna take another 600 from here. So I have 600, so it's quite easy because I have already 206. Don't have to do any multiply or division. So I have this one. I have 800 now for the issue. So for the 800 under the Lifo, last in first out, so this one is the last in. So before the issue, remember that we don't go down, we don't go this 300 because this one is after 20th of March. So we see before the issue the most recent purchase price. So before the issue the most recent purchase 100. So purchase unit is 200, and after that we have 600 and 700. So we go from there, there and there. So we go like from down to top. So value for this 800 unit will be 1600 plus 3600. So 3600 plus 1600, and that gives me 5200. So under the Lifo, 5200 is my issue value. So cost of the issue 5200, and the closing inventory value will be, so this is gone, so this one I use under the Lifo, this one I use under the Lifo left, and this is left, isn't it? So if we added this to 3500 plus 2700, and that gives me 6200. So you understand 6200 is the closing value. Finally you have AVCO. AVCO is quite easy. All you need to do, you need to make the average. So we have all the unit. So we have a 700, and we have a 600, and we have a 200. This one we have to add all of this. Then we have a 3500, and we have a 3600, and we have a 6. So let's add all of this. The cost 3500 plus 3600 plus 1600. That gives me 8700, and the unit I have 6 plus 2 is 8, 8 plus 7 is 1500. So 1500 units. If I bring the 1500, so that gives me the average divide 1500, and that gives me 5.8 per unit. Okay, so I'm going to issue the 800 at the price of 5.8. So times 800, and that gives me 4640. 4640. That's my issue cost, 4640. And the closing value will be, so from the 1500 here I have used 800, so 700 left. So 700 times 5.8, so 700 times 5.8, that gives me 4060. 4060. And we also have 300 unit, 2700. So plus 2700, and that gives me 6760. 6760. 67 and 60. That's it. So 6760 is my closing inventory value. So you can see it, once you understand the concept, it's not going to be very difficult, but the difficult thing is to understand the concept. So once you have the understanding of the Fifo, Lifo and AVCO, then any type of question come in the exam, you will be able to answer that. So my strongly advice will be for all of you, practice this all question you have just done now, because this one give you a very clear understanding for the other question as well. So if any sort of question come for the Fifo, Lifo, AVCO, and you will be able to answer that, because there will be definitely question in the exam from this area. Alright, let's have a look. The next one we have, this is manufacturing cost. This is not the inventory valuation, but this is kind of understanding question. Let's have a look what we have here. This question is mainly for the manufacturing part. It's not like kind of that question we done for the inventory valuation. So let's read this question first. We have here the manufacturing account. Let's say a company has the following cost data for the month. So you have an opening raw material, you have a raw material purchase, and the closing raw material inventory. So these three is basically together. So you have to remember how it works. So the raw material is basically is not completed product. So the raw material, for example, let's say if we make a bread, our raw material will be flour, sugar, eggs. So then the next one we have a opening WIP, work in progress, closing work in progress, and the opening finished goods. So we have only opening and the closing. So these two are together. Work in progress means the work is still in process. For example, if I put something on the machine and the work is still going on, it's not completed yet, this is called work in progress. Then finally we have a opening finished good inventory and we have a closing finished good inventory. So these two are together. Direct labor cost and manufacturing overhead. Now question here is determine and enter the cost total below. So you have a direct material cost, we have a direct cost, then you have a cost of goods manufactured and cost of goods sold and manufacturing cost. So cost of goods sold is the total cost. From the sales we minus the cost of goods sold to get the gross profit. So to do that we need to understand the format. So let's do the workings. The workings here we can see. So we have opening raw material inventory, then plus raw material purchase, closing raw material inventory. So if we have this workings opening plus purchase less closing, every single thing we do for the inventory calculation or anything, we have to remember this formula: opening plus purchase less closing. So that gives me the direct material use. So that means at the beginning I already had this material opening, so that comes from the last period. I already had this, and I also buy this period 47,000. So if I already have 12,500 and if I buy this one 47,800, and when I completed my production I still have some closing raw material 8,200. So how much material I have used? So I have used 51,300. For example, if you have a 10 pound from yesterday and you have 10 pound today, so you have total 20 pound. Now if you use 10 pound today, you use 10 pound, so how much or you have left 10 pound, let's say, on your pocket. So how much you used? So you used 10 pound, isn't it? So this one is the opening you already had from the before, this one you have today, and now you have left 10 pound. So that means you have 10 pound from yesterday and you have 10 pound today, so it should be 20 pound, and now you still have your pocket 10 pound, so you actually spent 10 pound. Exactly same thing, you have opening from the last period 12,500 and you purchase some material, so total it should be like that, and minus the closing because you already have this one on the stock. So that means how much you used, this plus this minus this, opening plus purchase less the closing. Then after that I'm going to use the direct labor cost, that is 64,000. so that will give me total direct cost. So direct material and direct labor, if I added this two, this total give me the direct cost. So direct material and the direct labor, that gives me the total direct cost. And after that I have a manufacturing overhead, that is 14,500, and if I added this one, that gives me manufacturing cost. Then we move to the next step, that is WIP, WIP, that is work in progress. Then we have opening work in progress less closing work in progress, so that will give me cost of goods manufactured. So opening minus closing, always follow this template: opening plus purchase less closing. Then we have opening inventory finished good and less closing inventory finished good, and that will give me the cost of goods sold. So if the question asks you to calculate cost of goods sold, this is the way we do. But the easy way to do that, basically, normally in the exam you're not going to see all the story. You're going to see opening inventory, then you're going to see purchase inventory. So opening inventory plus purchase less closing inventory, this one will give you the cost of sales or cost of goods sold. This is the story. So let's have a look here. We already calculated this balance, so this is the workings you have to remember, and all you need to do, you need to write the figures. So we have a 51,000, we have 300, that is our direct material, then 115,700, that's my direct cost, then 130,200, that's my manufacturing cost, and cost of good manufacturing we have 132,100, and finally cost of goods sold 500. So all you need to do, you need to remember this template. If we can remember this template, the cost of sales or cost of goods sold is not be very difficult for us. So we have 51,300, then direct cost we have a 115,700, manufacturing cost we have 130,200, and cost of good manufacture we have 132,100, and cost of sales it will be 130,500. That's it. So that's how we can complete our manufacturing cost. So this is our total overview for the chapter of inventory valuation. I hope now we understand the FIFO, Lifo and AVCO. In the exam, if there any question come, how to calculate the FIFO, how to Lifo, how to get the issue of the value, how to calculate the closing inventory value. So everything the question asks, I think like if you practice all of this thing we have done, if you practice few times, you will be absolutely fine to answer any of the question. But in the exam you will definitely get the question from the inventory valuation. So make sure you have a very good preparation, not for only your AAT level 2, in level 3 and level 4 you're going to see this question for the inventory valuation. I hope if you practice you will be alright with that. So we're going to stop for this lesson today here, and with the next lesson maybe going to see the next chapter.